Once upon a time, many believed reshoots indicated that a given movie was in deep, deep trouble. When of course the reality is that the overwhelming majority of big films go back for reshoots. Given the enormous complexity of any studio film shoot, often filmmakers only realize during post-production that something critical is lacking in the edit. Or perhaps test screening feedback has led them to believe that some fine-tuning is in order. Most of the time, reshoots slot effortlessly into the main shoot just fine, enough that we as audience members have no idea about them at all. But there are also times when the reshoots end up drawing attention to themselves. So, with that in mind, I'm Ellie for What Culture, and these are 10 recent movies with reshoots everyone noticed. Want to stay safe online and save big? Get up to 76% off a 2-year NordVPN plan, plus 4 months free, and up to a $50 Amazon gift card. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description, and it's all yours. Number 10, Captain America: Brave New World. Captain America: Brave New World underwent many weeks of reshoots following poor test screenings, reportedly in an attempt to beef up the film's lackluster action sequences and also add a number of characters to the story. In particular, reshoots added the supporting villain Sidewinder, who shows up a few times throughout the picture as an obstacle to Sam Wilson and his fellow heroes. Yet Sidewinder and his goons are so obviously siloed off from basically the entire rest of the movie that it's incredibly obvious that this footage was filmed later and just plugged into the existing material. Elsewhere, fans know from set leaks that the movie's primary villain, the leader, originally had a more comic-accurate design with a large bulging head. But given that the character has a more pared-down mutated head in the final film, it's clear that these scenes were all reshot. Overall, Brave New World is a chaotic melange of tones and ideas. And even if you weren't aware of the production issues, it so constantly screams reshoot at the audience. Number 9, Borderlands. One of the easiest ways for reshoots to draw attention to themselves is if a significant amount of time passes between principal photography and said reshoots. And that's absolutely what happened with Eli Roth's Borderlands. 2 weeks of reshoots took place in early 2023, almost 2 years after the film was originally shot. And this ensures that there are a few sequences throughout the final movie where Tiny Tina actress Ariana Greenblatt's age visibly changes. After all, she was just 13 years old when she began filming Borderlands, and was 15 by the time she returned for those reshoots. And as we know, youngsters age significantly more noticeably than adults. Even accepting that 2 weeks isn't a particularly egregious amount of time for reshoots, the moments where Greenblatt looks older occasionally draw attention to themselves. Also in part because the movie as a whole just isn't very interesting and so doesn't distract from these things. Number 8, Final Destination: Bloodlines. When Final Destination: Bloodlines was released, many fans were left bemused by a notable scene featured in the trailers that didn't make it into the final movie. The scene in question sees protagonist Stephanie's mother, Darlene, get trapped in the hospital's revolving door, seemingly being crushed to death. Online reports suggest that the sequence would have climaxed with Darlene surviving the revolving door, only to be killed by a falling letter from the hospital's sign after she made it outside. For whatever reason, the filmmakers decided to cut the scene and reshoot a new fate for Darlene, where she survives into the third act before ultimately being bisected by a lamppost. To anyone watching with that trailer sequence firmly in their mind, it was screamingly obvious that the last third of the movie underwent considerable tinkering, which might also explain why it's the flimsiest part of the entire picture. Number 7, Havoc. Though Gareth Evans' new Tom Hardy starring action film Havoc wrapped in October 2021, reshoots ultimately didn't take place until July 2024 due to both scheduling conflicts with the cast and the impact of the SAG-AFTRA strike. Evans has spoken extensively about how this lengthy break between principal photography and the reshoots allowed him to figure out precisely what he needed in order to, in his words, quote, iron out some story threads that needed a little bit more clarity. And while we haven't had official confirmation precisely which scenes were reshoots, it's incredibly easy to believe that the flashbacks peppered throughout the movie, which detailed protagonist Walker's sordid past as a dirty cop, were added last year. Considering that these scenes flesh out the story, involve numerous prominent cast members, and feel semi-randomly shoved into the edit at times, it absolutely tracks that they make up most, if not all, of the reshoot material. Furthermore, flashbacks are an easy way for movies to introduce new material without affecting the existing continuity. Number 6. Craven the Hunter. Now, it's no secret that superhero flop Craven the Hunter underwent reshoots in an attempt to, quote, sharpen the character and tighten the plot. And like most every Sony Spider-Man universe movie, of course, it's an absolutely chaotic mess that leaves its reshoots blinking in blinding neon. By far the most glaring presence of re-engineered material is the majority of the scenes involving Ariana DeBoss's Calypso. An overwhelming amount of her dialogue was ultimately redubbed in post-production, with the resulting edit regularly cutting away from showing her mouth moving at all. Then there's that infamous moment late in the movie where, with seemingly no other shot to cut to, the filmmakers just digitally altered a still image of Ariana DeBoss to make it look like her mouth was moving and her eyes were blinking. More broadly speaking, Craven was clearly a picture defined by reshoots and ADR, its frantic pace further suggesting a film desperately Frankenstein together in post-production. Number 5. The Exorcism. The Russell Crowe starring The Exorcism was released last summer, where it flopped critically and commercially. But believe it or not, it actually wrapped principal photography way back in December 2019. Due to the pandemic, planned reshoots were delayed, and if some reports can be believed, Miramax originally considered shelving the film entirely, enough that its own director, Joshua John Miller, wasn't ever sure it would come out. But following the 2023 success of Crowe's horror film The Pope's Exorcist, Miramax greenlit belated reshoots, ensuring they took place almost 4 years after the main shoot was completed. Now, while we as moviegoers can't say for 100% certain which scenes were reshoots, Crowe certainly looks visibly older in several sequences. And beyond this, The Exorcism as a whole is such an unwieldy mess of plot threads, which are introduced and never picked up again, that the film's messy production history is made howlingly obvious throughout. Number 4. Karate Kid Legends. Karate Kid Legends is one of the most editorially chaotic movies released this year. Beyond its 94-minute runtime, the entire picture feels like it was cut within an inch of its life. Scenes never get a moment to breathe. The tone pinballs from fun to serious in the blink of an eye, and countless sequences are chopped up into hyperactive musical montages because reasons. The entire movie has an incredibly ramshackle, thrown-together feel to it. And while Legends didn't have extensive reshoots by any means, it's not terribly surprising that the melodramatic flashback sequence where protagonist Lee's brother is murdered was added during post-production. It's a brief scene that feels very casually tossed into the movie, as though the filmmakers got into post-production before realizing that simply verbalizing Lee's brother's death wasn't enough. We also had to see the aftermath where Mr. Han attends to him. Number 3. Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts' post-credits scene leaps forward 14 months with the new Avengers now firmly established, before their chatter is interrupted by the arrival of the Fantastic Four in Earth 616. Many fans immediately noted how different Bucky's hairstyle looked, and not merely because he was now part of this new corporate-branded flavour of the Avengers. It was in fact because the post-credits scene was shot just a month before the picture's release, and was filmed on the set of Avengers Doomsday by the Russo brothers, with Thunderbolts director Jake Schreier on set overseeing it. By this point in time, Sebastian Stan was also in the midst of shooting a new project, which required Tim to have a shaved head for a couple of months. Enough that he turned up to the Thunderbolts premiere still rocking a short cut. As such, Stan had to don a wig for the Thunderbolts reshoot, and fans quite hilariously picked up on it almost immediately. Number 2. Ballerina. Now, to be fair, few movies in recent memory have gone through more widely publicised reshoots than John Wick spin-off Ballerina, which reportedly, due to poor test screenings, reshot a significant number of its set pieces. Initial reports indicated that Chad Stahelski, who has directed all 4 mainline Wick movies, was brought in to reshoot some of the film, which was initially helmed by Len Wiseman. However, both filmmakers refuted this, claiming that Stahelski merely assisted on a few weeks of reshoots. Either way, the movie as a whole feels like a whirlwind of things stapled together, clumsily lurching from boring exposition-filled chit-chat to electrifying action in a manner that gives the film a rather schizophrenic feel, like indeed it was shot by 2 different directors. It's tough not to watch Ballerina's terrific late-stage action, particularly an unforgettable sequence involving a flamethrower, and immediately peg it as the most Stahelski-led set piece you've ever seen. It's entirely of a piece with the Wick films, and so easy to credit all the picture's more breakneck bursts of violence to Stahelski, while the more flat, energy-devoid scenes feel wholly consistent with most of Wiseman's previous work as a director. Harsh? Maybe a bit. True? I'll let you decide. Number 1, Twisters. And finally we have last summer's Twisters, which caught some unexpected flack for its final scene, where Tyler races to the airport to stop Kate from flying home, and they don't kiss. A lip lock between the pair was so expected, especially with the film being such a blatant throwback to corny disaster movies of decades past, that many cried foul that it didn't happen, convinced that they must have shot a scene of the pair kissing. Now hilariously, this actually turned out to be totally true, as the very day that the movie was released, footage from the set was posted online showing a filmed kiss between Tyler and Kate, revealing that the non-kiss version featured in the final scene was an alternate take. Ultimately, Lee Isaac Chung decided to use the non-kiss take after being encouraged to do so by Steven Spielberg, who felt that it kept the focus on Kate's journey on storm chasing rather than romance. Perhaps it's a valid point, but come on, this is Twisters. Just give the people what they want!